Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zhang, and today we'll be going over the math midterm. This is for form SWI. So for question number one, you have to add 5.67 plus 7.38. So when you add decimals, the most important thing to do is to line up the decimal points. And when you do that, you are essentially putting the place values together and aligned. So once you have all the decimal points lined up like this, we have the ones place aligned, the tenths, and the hundredths place all aligned, which means that you can then add the decimals. So when you do this, you just start from the right side. 8 and 7 is 15 to carry the 1 into the tenths place. And then 1, 6, and 3 is 10, carried to the ones place. And then that's just 13. And the decimal moves down, so you get 13.05 or 13 and 5 tenths for choice A. Next for number two, which number belongs in the box? So here you want to look for a pattern. So if you look at 15, then 18, then this mystery number, 24 and 27, first you would take note that the numbers are increasing. So if the numbers are getting bigger, that means that the pattern is either adding or multiplying, because those are two ways for numbers to increase. So in this case, you would try adding, and you notice that they're both being added by 3 if you look through this pattern. So that means our best guess would be to add 3. When you do that, you get 21, because 18 plus 3 is 21, which then you can continue to add 3 to get 24 and 27. So the mystery number would be choice C, 21. Next for number 3, how are the numbers in the box alike? So we have 6 numbers in the box, 2, 26, 8, 34, 10, and 4. And here, these numbers look kind of random, so you just go through all the choices and you use process of elimination. So choice A says that they're all odd. Well, that's not true, because all odd numbers, they end in 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. And none of these do, so they're not going to be odd at all. Look at choice B. These numbers are all even, and that's true because they end in 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. So choice B is probably our answer. All these numbers are in fact even. However, we have to go through all the choices just to make sure that choice B is in fact the correct answer. So choice C says they're all larger than 10. It's not true. We have 3 numbers that are less than 10. And finally, for choice D, they're counted by 5s, which is not true, because if you count by 5s, that's a 5 times table, which means it ends in 0 or 5. And none of these, well, one of these numbers ends in 0, but other than that, that's it. So the best answer here will be choice B. These are all even numbers. Next one, number 4, Anna paid for breakfast with a $5 bill. She received the change shown below. So how much did Anna's breakfast cost? So here the keyword in this word problem is change. And when you receive change, that means that you're going to have to subtract. So when you subtract, you have to subtract $5. Subtract how much money we have. And in this case, we have $1. We have 50 cents, because these are true quarters. 5 cents, 10 cents, and these would be 3 cents. So when you add up all the coins, you have 50 plus 10, 5, and 3, which means that of 68 cents plus $1. So that means that our change was 168, which means if we subtract this from 5, we can get how much money the breakfast costs. So here, to subtract, you have to borrow twice. It's 0, you can't subtract 8, so it becomes a 10. And then this 10, you have to borrow from this 10, which you can't give one away, so it becomes another 10. Which means we'll borrow from this 5, which becomes a 4. This 10 becomes a 9. So you have to borrow twice here, so be careful. So 10 minus 8 is 2, 9 and 6 is 3, and 4 and 1 is 3. So the answer is choice B. Next for number 5, the TV show starts at 6:35 p.m. and ends at 7:20 p.m. How long is a TV show? So here when we have time, the conversion rate for time is that 1 hour is 60 minutes. So in this case, you want to count forward from 6:35 p.m. You can move forward 25 minutes. And we have 60 minutes, which then gets to 1 hour. So this would be 7 o'clock, and that's 25 minutes. And you still need to go another 20 minutes to get to 7:20 p.m. So in this case, the time elapsed will be 25 and 20, which would be 45 minutes total. Next for number 6, which expression is true? So here you want to compare fractions. And when you compare fractions, there are a couple strategies you can make. So the first strategy would be the lowest common denominator strategy, where the larger the numerator will mean larger fraction. For example, 3/4 is greater than 1/4. Because you got 3 slices of pizza versus just 1 slice of pizza. And the other option would be the butterfly or the cross method. So for this cross method, let's say you had to compare 3/4 and 2/3. You would do some cross multiplication. And here, 3 times 3 is 9. And 4 and 2 is 8. So since 9 is bigger than 8, we have 3/4 is greater than 2/3. And this method works because you have the lowest common denominator as well. So in this case, the lowest denominator would be 12. So in this case, the cross method is probably the best. That is a lot less work than the other ones. So you would multiply 3 times 2, which is 6. 1 times 5 is 5. So choice A is wrong because you're looking for one that's true. Next for part B, 2 times 2 is 4. And then 5 and 1 is 5. So in this case, again, this is wrong. 5 is bigger than 4. And next we have 1/2 is less than 1/3. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. And 3 is greater than 2. So this is also wrong. And finally for choice D, it's the opposite of C. So 3 times 1 is 3. 1 and this 2 would be 2. So in this case, the 3 is greater than 2. So this lesson symbol is correct. You can also do the LCD method, which in this case is 6. You could rewrite the fractions, and you get 1/3 is 2/6 versus 1/2, which is 3/6. So here we see that 3/6 is greater than 2/6. So just to summarize, for this problem, you have to recognize how to compare fractions. And we compare fractions with the LCD method or the multiply method. Next, for number 7, what's the area of a sheet? The most important part here is the key, and this key says that each of these boxes are worth 2 square centimeters. So you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. So you have 16 square centimeters so far. And then you have these 2 triangles, which are exactly half. So that's just 2 times 1, or 2. So altogether, you have 18 square centimeters for the area. So again, the key here is area, which is the space inside a shape. And we have to look at the key here to help us. Next one, number 8. Last week, Andy ate 3 cookies each day for 6 days. This week, he ate 3 cookies each day for 5 days. And which expression can be used to represent the total number of cookies Andy's ate in these 2 weeks? So the key here is to look for the keywords. So keywords tell us what operation to do. And in this case, we have keyword each, but 2 times. And each is a tricky one because each could mean multiply or divide depending on the situation. Now we multiply if we want the total, and we divide if we have the total. So if you've already had the total, you have to divide so that the numbers get smaller. But if you want the total, you want to multiply for each problem because that means the number will be bigger. So in this case, we don't know what the total is, so we'll want to actually multiply. So each of these keywords each means to multiply. And then finally we have the word total, and total means to add. So last week, he ate 3 cookies for 6 days. That's 3 times 6. And this week he ate 3 cookies each day for 5 days. That'll be 3 times 5. And we have to put parentheses because we have to add the total here. Now you don't have to figure out what the answer actually is. You just have to rewrite this expression. So just go through all the choices and see which expression matches this. And we see that in choice B matches this because if we distribute this 3, that would be equal to 3 times 6 plus 3 times 5, which is exactly what we need. So we have to use the distributor property here. So for this problem, we have to identify the keywords. Once we have the keywords, then we can rewrite the expression using those keywords. Okay, here's a summary for this first page. Next, for number 9, you have to solve for j, which 9j minus 2j is equal to 14. So j is your mystery number, and we use a letter to represent that, so that's called a variable. So variable is a letter that represents a mystery number, and here we have to combine like terms. Because 9j and 2j are like terms, they both have the same variable. So when we subtract 9j minus 2j, we have to just subtract the coefficients. And coefficients are the numbers in front of a variable that you multiply. So in this case, when we subtract 9 minus 2, you get 7. So the answer here is 7j. So 9j minus 2j will be 7j, and that's equal to 14. And here you have to be careful. There is a invisible multiply. There's an invisible dot here. So because of that, you have 7 times this j is equal to 14, and you can use inverse operations. So in this case, when you use inverse operations, the opposite of multiplying will be divide, because this is a backwards problem. You have to divide both sides by 7. You get that j is equal to 2. That's choice D. So here we have a couple of keywords that you need to know. First, have variable, which is just a mystery number. Then we have to combine like terms as our strategy. And by combining like terms, you have to add or subtract the coefficient, which is the number in front of the variable. And we have to use inverse operations to work backwards. Next, for number 10, a cube with the face of area A has a surface area of 6A. Zachary built a wooden cube to use as a trophy stand. The area of one face of the cube is 16 square inches. What's the surface area of the trophy stand? So here we have a formula. The surface area is 6 times A. So in this formula, surface area refers to the how much space is needed to wrap this 3D object. So you have to cover this 3D object. In this case, it's a cube. So for this cube, if you were to open this up, what would end up happening is you have this base, then you have the 4 sides, and you still have the lid. Okay, so it's opening up, and eventually you get something that looks like this. So this is the net diagram for this cube. And the surface area is 6 times A, where each of these is A, because they're all squares, and you have 6 of them. So in this case, you know that the face is 16, so it will be 6 times 16, which will be equal to 96. And that's choice D. So the keyword here is surface area, and we have this formula. Surface area is how much space is needed to wrap this gift. Next to number 14, Aaron buys a lawnmower during a sale. If Aaron pays $24, what was the original price? So this sale is 75% off. So here we have percentages, 75% off. And what that means is you have to pay the remainder, which is 25%. So if you save 75%, you have to do 100 minus 75 to be equal to 25. That's how much you pay. But the total for this percent problem is 100, because percent means out of 100, or 100% is a total. So that means that 25% is actually $24. To get the original price, that's 100%. So to go from 25 to 100%, you have to times 4. To do that to the other side as well. When you times 4, 24 times 4 will be 96. So this lawnmower used to cost $96. And then you saved 75%, which means you paid the remainder 25%, and that's 24. For question number 12, it says the students in Brennan's grade voted to select a guest speaker. 25% of the students voted for a famous athlete. If there are 56 students in Brennan's grade, how many students voted for the athlete? So here we see this is a percent problem. And when you have percents, that means it's out of 100. So here you can turn this 25% into either a fraction or a decimal. To turn a percent into a fraction, you just put it over 100. So it'll be 25 over 100, which you can simplify as 1/4. Or to put into decimal, you have to move the decimal point over 2 times to the left. Essentially what you're doing is you are dividing by 100. That's what a percent means. So when you do that, you will get 0.25.
either way, you'll take this part, this percent, and you'll take that part of the whole. So in this case, the part is 25%, and we have the whole because this is the total number of students in the grade. So we'll take 25% of 56, and that would be either 1/4, and the word of means to multiply. So it'll be multiplying 1/4 times 56, or 0.25 times 56. So in this case, the fraction is easier because you can cross simplify. You'll be able to cross cancel, and when you do that, you get 14. So the answer will be choice C. So here, just to summarize, we have a percent problem, and percent means out of 100, or to divide by 100. And here, you can turn a percent into either a fraction or a decimal. Just put it over 100, or you put it, you move the decimal point to the left 2 times. If you want to do part of a whole, which of means to multiply. Next one, number 13. Wade built a fence around a rectangular section of the backyard. The length of the fence is 20 feet, and the width is 5 feet. Find the perimeter of the fenced section. The keyword here is perimeter, and perimeter is the distance around the shape. So in this case, when you have the distance around the shape, you have to draw your shape first. In this case, it will be, of course, a rectangle. So when you have this rectangle, you have the length, it's 20 feet, and the width is 5 feet. And we know that for a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So the bottom part is 20 feet, the top is also 20 feet. The right side is 5, the left side is also 5. So we have to use the fact that opposite sides are congruent. So in this case, we could just add everything around, and the perimeter will be 20 plus 20 plus 5 plus 5. You can also use a formula for perimeter. That's 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Either way, you'll get 50 for the perimeter. That will be choice C. So for this question, you have to figure out the perimeter, which is the distance around the shape. The opposite will be area, which is the space inside a shape. And for a rectangle, opposite sides are equal, so you can use this formula to figure out the perimeter. All right, next you have this chart of basketball equipment, and for number 14 it says 1/3 of the cones and all of the nets are worn out and need to be replaced. How many items will Miss Hoops replace? So here we have in this fraction, 1/3 of the cones. Of is your keyword, which means to multiply. You have to look at the chart, figure out the cones, which in this case is 12. You have to do 1/3 of or times 12. So again, of means to multiply. And then the cones, you have 12 cones. So when you multiply, this is really 1/3 times 12 over 1, or 1 times 12 over 3 times 1. It's 12 over 3. You can also cross simplify, and you get 4. You can also cross simplify here, cross cancel. And now all of the nets are worn out, so you have to add all the nets, which in this case is 4. So you get a total of 8. 8 items in total, which is choice A. So here you have the keyword of, which means multiply, and then you have to add. All right, next for number 15, Richard's soccer team played in a tournament. The tournament started at 7:45 and ended 5 hours and 15 minutes later. What time was it when the soccer tournament ended? So you start at 7:45. And we don't know if it's the morning or night. It's probably morning, but it doesn't matter because we have these analog clocks. You'll add 5 hours and 15 minutes. You want to put minutes under the minutes. And when you add 45 plus 15, you get 60. And now 60 is important because you know that 1 hour is 60 minutes. So 60 is too much for the minute, so you have to carry that and add a 1 to the hour side. And then you do 7 plus 5 plus 1, you will get 13. Now, this is kind of like that military time or that 24-hour clock. To turn this back into analog, you have to subtract 12 because this will be ideally from AM and this is technically PM. So if you subtract 12 hours, you got 1 PM. So 13 o'clock is really 1 PM. So this is using that 24-hour clock that like the military uses, for example. So you don't have AM or PM for that. You'll just have 0 to 24. But to turn into an analog clock, you want 1 PM. So that means you want the hour hand at 1. So this is the shorthand to the hour hand at 1. And then the minute hand is at 12. So choice A is 1 o'clock. Choice B is really 12:50. Choice C is exactly 12 o'clock. And choice D is 12:40. You have to multiply the minutes by 5. So here, to read an analog clock, you have to multiply the minute hand by 5 because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So you have 12 numbers on this clock, so you have to multiply it by 5 since you're counting by 5. All right, and here's a summary for this page. Next one, number 16. What is the value of t? And t is this angle here. And this angle, notice, is the opposite of this other angle. And here these are called opposite angles. And when you have opposite angles, you always have this X formation. Opposite angles are congruent, which means they're equal. So the top part is 60, the bottom part is also 60 degrees. The answer would be choice D. So again, here we have opposite angles. You have to recognize them, and they are always congruent. Next one, number 17. What is the value of the expression below? So here for this expression, notice you have multiple operations. You have to do the order of operations. It tells you which order you have to do these operations. You can remember that phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You can use that mnemonic device to figure out its parentheses, exponents. After exponents, you'll do multiply and divide, left to right. And then finally for Aunt Sally, that's add and subtract, again, left to right. So this is the order of operations, or PEMDAS. So for this, you have to follow it. It's a checklist. So to follow this, first you look for parentheses, which you see over here, which means you got to do that first. So when you do this first, 2 plus 4 is 6. And now you have to rewrite the entire expression. So please get into a good habit of rewriting everything so you don't make a mistake, because this is a multi-step problem. So we're done with please, with the parentheses. Next is excuse or exponents, which you don't see, so you could just skip that. So you're done. Finally, it's multiply and divide, left to right. So just look through the expression and see and identify the multiply and divide first. It shows up on the left. And we see it's 3 times 6, so we have to do that first. Okay, if you subtract by accident, you'll get the wrong answer. So you have to make sure that we're following this order of operations. Do 3 times 6 first, which is 18, and then rewrite everything else. This is 20 minus 18. We're done with multiply and divide. And finally, you add or subtract left to right. And 28 minus 18 is 2. So the final answer is choice C, 2. If you got anything else, that means you mess up the order of operations. You have to make sure you follow this order if you want to get the correct answer. And for the order of operations, or PEMDAS, you have to follow this order. You can use, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, to help you remember that. Next, for number 18, Ming has a plastic container that is shaped like a rectangular prism. The container has a length of 14 centimeters, a width of 6, and if the volume of the container is 840 cubic centimeters, what is its height? To have these choices here. So here we have the keyword is volume. Volume, the space inside, but not a 2D figure, a 3-dimensional figure. In this case, you want to draw a prism. So a prism looks like this. So this is your prism. And in this prism, you have the length, the width, and the height. Now we know that the length is 14, the width is 6, and we don't know what the height is. So we can call that h, but we do know that the volume is 840 cubic centimeters. So the formula for the volume of a prism is length times width times height. You have to multiply these 3 numbers. But we have to go backwards here because we know it's 840 is the volume. That's equal to the length, which is 14, and the width is 6, times height. So if you multiply 14 times 6, you get 84. So that means the volume is 840 is equal to 84 times height. And height is your variable here. It's your mystery number. And because it's a backwards problem, you want to use inverse operations to solve for it. So to solve for height, instead of multiplying, you have to use division. And you're dividing by 84. That way you can cross out 84 on the right side. So we multiply by 84 and then divide by 84. That cancels out. That just leaves height by itself, and that's equal to 840 divided by 84, or 10. So the answer would be choice A. The height would be 10. And you can double check your answers. If you do 14 times 6 times 10, you will get the volume of 840 cubic centimeters. So for this problem, the key is to use the formula for volume, then times width times height. And this is a backwards problem. So I have to use inverse operations. All right, next for number 19. Karen is K years old. Raul's age, R, is 6 more than 2 times Karen's age. Which of the following equations best represents this situation? So here you have to turn the word sentence into a number sentence. So here we have Raul's age and Karen's age, K and R. And here we know that Raul's age, which is R, is 6 more than. It's the first keyword. More than means to add. And then the second keyword is times, which is multiply. So Karen's, you take Karen's age, you do 6 more. 6 more than 2 times Karen. So more than means you gotta add. And times means you gotta multiply. So it's 6 plus 2 times K. So here, you can look at all the choices and see which one this is, and this would be equal to Raul. Now for this multiply, you can rewrite this using a coefficient and a variable. So you don't have to put the multiply sign, you could just have an invisible dot. And this corresponds with choice C, because we can use the commutative property of addition to turn 6 plus 2k. It's the same thing as 2k plus 6. This is the commutative property. And the commutative property says you can switch the order. For addition and multiplication problems, and they're both the same. So here I'd have to go from word sentence to a number sentence. Identify the keyword more than is plus, and times is multiply. And then we can use a commutative property to help us as well. Just be careful of the invisible dot.
For question number 20, it says it takes 90 minutes to watch 28 vehicles at a car wash. At this rate, how many minutes does it take to wash 5 vehicles? So here we have the keyword, which is rate. And rate just means speed. So what that means is how fast something occurs. So if it takes 90 minutes, and this is for 20 cars, and you want to know how many minutes, for 5 cars. So the units are going to be really important, because when I have the units written like this, where minutes line up with minutes, cars line up with cars, you can then compare these rates by using a proportion. So you can turn this into a fraction, turn this to equal sign, and then you can cross multiply. So when you cross multiply, here, what happens is you have 90 times 5 is equal to 20 times x. You could divide both sides by 20 to solve for x. And when you do this, you get 450 divided by 20, or 22.5. And that's choice C. So here, this is a rate problem or a proportion problem, where you have unit rates, and you can solve using equivalent fractions. Next, for number 21, Coach Abdi needs to buy 12 t-shirts for the girls' basketball team. The list below shows the prices of t-shirts at 2 stores. So store X has 1 t-shirt that costs $12, and then store Y has a package of 6 t-shirts for $60. What's the amount of money that Coach Abdi will save if she buys 12 t-shirts at store Y? If you want to buy 12 shirts, so at store X, you buy 12 shirts, and it costs $12 each. You just times it by 12. That would be $144. But at store Y, you can buy 6 shirts, and that costs $60. But you need 12 shirts, so if you double that, you can again solve using the same proportion as before. We set up equivalent fractions, but here you can just times 2. So by 2 sets of that, that's going to be $120. So you can subtract 144 minus 120. You see that you can save $24 by buying it in bulk. And that's choice B. Next, for number 22, a dance instructor charges each student $57 for dance lessons. Students who register early receive a $15 discount. A total of 11 students took the dance lessons. And if 5 of these students registered early, how much would the instructor collect from these 11 students? So here, you have to figure out, normally they cost $57, and you have 11 students total. So that would be 57 times 11. So when you multiply, you get $627. But some of them registered early, and when you register early, you have a $15 discount. And here, 5 students registered early. So they saved money, which means you don't have to pay this instructor. If you do 15 times 5, that would be 75. So you would have to subtract $75, which is discounted. And when you subtract, you get 552. And that's choice B. All right, and here the summary for this page. All right, next to number 23, which of the following models shows 45% shaded? So we know that 45% is first less than 50%. So these bars are about the same size. If you do 50%, that's going to be somewhere here. You want it to be less than 50%. So it can't be A and it can't be C. So it's between choices B and D. And here, to figure out shaded, you want to do part over the whole. So for choice B, you have you have 1, 2, 3, 4 shaded out of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 4/10 or 40%. So we know that's not 45%, so B's wrong. So a little bit higher than this. And choice D has an extra one. This would be equal to 9/20, which is exactly equal to 45%. You can also use process of elimination here. So for this question, this key is to figure out that it's a fraction, so you want part over whole. Next, for number 24, the price of gasoline at 4 different gas stations is shown in the table below. So which gas station charges the least amount of gallons of gasoline? So you want to figure out the lowest price per gallon. And the keyword here is per. And per means to divide. So you want the amount, or the money, divided by the gallons. So then you have to divide each of these in this column by the number in this column. So you do 36 divided by 15. And when you do 36 divided by 15, you get 2. You have 6 remaining, so that, put another 0. 15 went 64 times, so this would be 240. To do the same thing for station L, you have to divide 23.5 over 10. And here you can just move the decimal point to the left. To move it left, and you get 2.35. So far, station L is winning. For station M, that is $20 divided by 8. And when you do 20 divided by 8, you get 2, and that's 16. You get 40, and 8 goes into 40 5 times. This is also 2.5, so this is the most expensive. And finally, for station N, that's 51 divided by 20. So when you divide, you get 2. 2 times 20 is 40. And you have 110. And 20 goes 110 5 times. So this is even more expensive. So this is $2.55. So the cheapest one's going to be station L, because that's only $2.35. So that's choice B. So here the key word is per, and per means to divide. So you want to divide the amount by the gallon for each of these stations. Next, for number 25, which of the following are obtuse isosceles triangles? We have a couple of triangles here. The first word is obtuse. And obtuse means there's an angle that is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. The obtuse angle will look something like this, where this angle is greater than 90, but less than 180. So here we can see that triangle P has an obtuse angle. Q doesn't have any, so these are all acute angles, and acute angles are less than 90 degrees. Triangle R has one that's 110, and triangle S doesn't have one, just has a right angle, which is exactly equal to 90 degrees. So only triangle P and R are obtuse. And then the next part is isosceles. And isosceles means that two sides are equal, and the two angles are equal. And we see that's the case for P and Q. That's what these tick marks represent. Tick mark means that these two sides are equal. So both triangle P and triangle R are going to be obtuse isosceles triangles. That's choice A. So here we have some keywords. Obtuse means between 90 and 180, and isosceles means you have two sides that are equal, which means two angles are equal. And we also have some other keywords. Acute means less than 90 degrees, and finally right angle means it's exactly equal to 90 degrees. All right, and here's the summary for this last page. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, bye everyone.